So we were all looking around for some solutions, and there was this land trust option that was going on, and we just decided we would go for it.
People that are in situations where they may want to either donate or to sell an easement on the land, like to have those conversations privately, and the land trust allows them to do that.
Public land in general is something that's very, very important to me. I rely on being able to have access to beautiful spots. I'm a landscape painter. I celebrate the Maine landscape through my paintings. When I return here, I realize what an incredible, incredible town this is. And I just feel fortunate to have grown up here, but also continue to have connections here through friends, through family, and now through the Cape Elizabeth Land Trust.
Oh, I think it's a tremendous asset to preserve some of what's left of coastal Maine. I think what makes it special is the trail network, the habitat, and stewardship. First, I met Suzanne McGinn last year to remove invasive species. And I told her that I wanted to become involved, and here I am. I'm in it knee deep. My hope for the future is more coordination between schools.
I run field trips for the Pond Cove Elementary School, but they have specific age-appropriate activities that are hands-on and guided, so you're not just having a walk in the woods. You're learning, and I hope that the field trips help them be able to explore and see what the woods and see what the fields have to offer. I'm not just volunteering for the sake of volunteering. The education piece I'm passionate about, the public land and nature piece I'm passionate about.
Knowing that there are open spaces like where we are today that is really woven into the fabric of our community. It's part of the definition of who the town is. Cape is what it is because there aren't houses everywhere. It started out as a farming and a fishing community, and we have maintained that heritage, enhanced it, and we are working to see that that continues. The success of the land trust financially plays right into that because ultimately the dollars are needed. That's what makes it work.
Bill Luneburg, are you on mute?
No, I'm not on mute.
Okay, your turn.
Welcome everybody to the first Zoom and hopefully the last Zoom annual meeting of the Cape Elizabeth Land Trust. My name is Bill Luneburg. I'm the new president. I succeed Elizabeth Goodspeed, who had a wonderful tenure of 3 years. We're going to talk about that later. I have big shoes to fill. If you're interested in my background, I think you can look at the CELT webpage. One thing that it doesn't note is something I have to admit, and that is I am not a native-born Mainer, and I actually was born in New York City. I hate to admit that. And the first time I came to Maine was not until I was 6 weeks old in 1946. And I've come to Maine ever since, but didn't become a permanent resident until 1914. I'm still not a Mainer. I'm, as people will say, I'm a dogfish, or at least for a long time I was a dogfish, leaving in the summer and coming back the next year. We're having this virtual meeting for obvious reasons, honoring the need for keeping everybody safe. Hopefully in the future, hopefully next year, we won't have to do this. We're hoping that this meeting won't go much more than an hour, but we do want to invite your questions, and we hope that you can give us your questions over the course of the night. There are a variety of ways for you to give those to us. You can use the chat option on the screen and send your questions to Philip Matteau. And if you'd please add your email address and phone number so we can get back to you if we can't immediately get back to you tonight. Also Facebook, if you are joining us on Facebook, you can put your questions in the comments section. And the final option is if you just email your question to info@capelandtrust.org and we'll answer those. If not tonight, we'll answer them in due course. But as I say, please ask your questions when they occur to you. You don't have to wait until the end. The agenda for the meeting is relatively simple. We're going to have a discussion about the capital campaign, a discussion of a wonderful and important bequest to the land trust. Cindy Krum, our executive director, is going to give her annual report. We'll move to some discussion of some organizational changes and developments for the land trust. And finally, there'll be some business related to the new officers and committee chairs. So without further ado, let me introduce Suzanne McGinn, who's a board member, longtime board member, and one of the campaign chairs who's done just yeoman service in terms of making, along with her colleagues, for a wonderful result in terms of our capital campaign. Suzanne?
Yeah. Hi. I'm Suzanne McGinn, and I've been involved with CELT since I moved here in 2003. We had 3 small boys, couldn't believe what an amazing resource we had with open space. And so I quickly became a board member and have been a board member for 17 years now. And during that time, I've co-chaired the education committee for 10 years. I chaired the stewardship committee for 4 years. I served on the executive committee for about a dozen years. And now I'm currently co-chairing the comprehensive campaign over the last 3 years. So you may be wondering why we decided to embark on a comprehensive campaign. Well, our board went through a thoughtful process that began with updating our strategic plan back in 2017. And we recognized as a mature nonprofit and newly accredited land trust, to fulfill our goals of protecting priority lands, stewarding our parcels that we currently have, and continuing to enrich and engage our community connection to the land, we needed greater financial resources. These were aspirational goals for CELT that required significant funding, hence the comprehensive campaign. And this is CELT's first real capital campaign. Forever Cape, we decided to call our campaign Forever Cape, a campaign for our community. 96% of our community values preserving lands cherished by our town, as determined in the 2017 townwide survey, completed for the updated town master plan. And CELT feels we're serving to support the predominant values of our citizens. CELT was established over 30 years ago by a group of citizens concerned about preserving Cape's rural character, as Carol Fritz said in the video. Since then, we've conserved 30 parcels totaling 768 acres, and CELT's the only organization in town preserving lands in perpetuity, meaning forever. Through the strategic plan, we identified a minimum of 5 million and a maximum of 6.25 million in needs to fulfill our goals over the next 5 to 10 years. In November 2017, a campaign cabinet was created from our most dedicated volunteers. Our cabinet has been meeting with community members, inviting them to join our efforts. And we've had so much fun meeting new and old friends along the way. And we've had an amazing outpouring of participation to meet CELT's urgent and ongoing needs, which we separated into 4 different buckets. So our first bucket, which is protecting and stewarding land in perpetuity. We determined that we needed 4 million for land acquisition. Our lands committee has specific land criteria when acquiring parcels, such as habitat importance, public access, connectivity to existing trails, upland marsh, unique ecosystems, and farmland. At the very beginning of the campaign, Pollock Brook Preserve became available after working with the landowner for about 10 years. This 30-acre parcel is unique because it contains prime farmland soils. It's the home to our endangered New England cottontail rabbits. It's located within Upland Marsh, and it connects to our existing runaway farm and the town's Goldcrest trails. Because we had some really generous donors very early on in the campaign, we were able to respond quickly and close on the property in 90 days for $1.2 million. $1 million for the land and $200,000 for perpetual stewardship needs. The timing was fortuitous that the willing landowners were now ready to sell. And shortly after that, Robinson Woods 3 became available. And we also had been working with the Robinsons on acquiring an additional 51.9 acres. This land that's adjacent to the 145.6 acres of Robinson Woods. This parcel borders on the pond with significant high-value habitat as recognized by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, as well as IF&W. There are also wetlands, old-growth trees, trail connectivity to the Crosstown Trail. It's the perfect fit for our land criteria. So the total cost of this project was $1,845,000 for the land plus 20% set aside for perpetual stewardship needs. And we were very fortunate and very grateful to partner with the town, who contributed $169,000, and we applied and received an LMF grant for another $225,000. Now we turn our attention to Maxwell Farm Dyer Field, where we're working with Nate and Kathy Maxwell and have partnered with Maine Farmland Trust to protect 76 acres with a farm easement, assuring that the land will be forever protected as a farm parcel in perpetuity for generations to come. Once preserved, this will be the largest permanently protected farm parcel closest to Portland. And best of all, Maine Farmland Trust has a very generous donor, matching dollar for dollar up to $854,000 towards our total project cost of almost $1.8 million. And shortly, Cindy will be talking more detail about these 3 parcels. So stewardship, this is the second bucket of our campaign, totaling $300,000. Our 30 parcels require invasive species management, boardwalk and bridge replacement, annual property monitoring, baseline documentation, and management plans on our newest properties. And we recognize that our stewardship responsibilities require the addition of a part-time stewardship person. We are thrilled that Philip Matthew, our education coordinator, was willing to expand his role and take on this responsibility, which has been awesome. General endowment. This is the third bucket of funds. So when we started the campaign, we had an endowment of $56,000. To ensure long-term financial health of the organization, we determined we needed a substantial endowment of at least $1.2 million, where we can use, hopefully, 4% of the interest income to offset our annual expenses ongoing. Annual operations, this is our 4th bucket of $750,000. Our board felt it was critically important to include all of our membership as campaign donors. So if you're a member during our campaign period from fiscal year 2018 through 2020, you are included as a campaign donor. The numbers I'm sharing with you on the screen reflect totals through the end of September, which is our fiscal year. But if you happen to see our thermometer in town by the CELT office, you'll notice that we're currently very close to reaching our campaign goal of $6.25 million. To date, we've raised $6.19 million from 899 donors, and our hope is to conclude the campaign upon the closing of Maxwell Farm on November 25th. But wait, there's still plenty of time to contribute to the project and help us to unleash the matching funds dollar for dollar. And if you give a donation of $1,000 or more, you'll receive a lovely CELT canvas bag with a beautiful map of Cape painted by Molly Brown of Molly Maps, which was donated by one of our amazing donors. Not sure how we're going to get this to you during COVID, but we're going to do it. So don't worry about it. You'll definitely get the bag. Finally, CELT could not have accomplished our goals for the community without the leadership of our board of directors and CELT advisors who provided the vision for our campaign. Our entire staff, Patty, Cindy, and Philip, faithfully provided all the hard work needed to make it successful, much of it behind the scenes. And a huge thank you to our entire campaign committee. The tireless leadership from our campaign chairs, Ted Darling, Julian and Mary Ellen Coles, our honorary chairs, the campaign cabinet, our campaign treasurer, and other key campaign volunteers. Ethos helped by creating our marketing pieces, and Vaunt redesigned our website. Most of all, thank you to all of the donors who have contributed to our campaign to date. We could not have done this without each and every one of you. So thanks. And for those of you who haven't given yet, I hope you'll consider joining our community in this important effort to preserve Cape's special places with a gift. Remember, your gift will be matched, and we'll have a link for the contributions below in the chat if you so choose. Finally, we hope to be able to celebrate with the community outdoors in a socially distanced way over the winter. So stay tuned for details. I hope you can join us. We're scheming up a pretty fun idea right now that where we need to work out some kinks, but I think it's gonna work, even with COVID, even in the dead of winter. And finally, also, I'm just gonna leave you to watch this wonderful short video that was provided by Maine Farmland Trust about Maxwell Farm, Dyer Field with Nate Maxwell, followed by Patty, who's gonna share even some more exciting news. So thanks.
Well, nobody understands unless they've been through it. And I mean, I spent a lot of time doing handwork as a kid. But it's human nature, yeah, to take things for granted.
The Maxwell Farm is the most recognizable agricultural property in town, and it's one that's been literally in the center of town for generations.
I went from working a lot to working a lot. I mean, there's a lot of work just keeping cropland viable. I've had to slow down, but it's hard to do that. I'm gonna retire, I hope.
A lot of people in town feel that these farms are going to exist forever and that they are protected in some way. I'm always surprised when they hear of the development pressure of a piece of property.
See, if I'm going to retire, I got to think about, will I have to sell the land in order to take care of myself? If I don't have children, but I have somebody that I would like to see be able to keep going. They couldn't buy it at development prices, but they could buy it at the farmland price. This easement will guarantee this place will be available forever as a farm.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. And it's such an exciting project that we have at Maxwell Farm. You know, you just never know what's going to happen at the Land Trust. And we've just been so grateful this year for the outpouring of community support that comes in so many ways. One day I was just sitting at the office and I was opening the mail and I had just said goodbye to our former president, Elizabeth Goodspeed, who had been working on some project in the other room. And I was going through the mail and I opened a letter, and inside was a very official looking legal form, something about a notice of probate. And I sort of scanned down the page and onto the next page where it listed the Cape Elizabeth Land Trust as the primary beneficiary of the Nicholas Davis Trust as directed by Constance Verrill Rice. And next to our name was the dollar figure of $1 million. So I think I let out a gasp or a scream, and my first thought was to grab Elizabeth. So I ran out of the office and caught her still in the car. I threw the papers at her and I just said, "Is this really what I think it is?" It was so amazing. And, you know, that really just began a wonderful journey of discovery and new connections with this person, Connie Reich, and her family, which had roots in Cape Elizabeth, and an amazing story about this incredible gift. And I just want to acknowledge Connie's two sons, Chris and Brad Reich, and their families who have just been great through this whole process. So here's a photo of Connie Reich. She was born in 1925 and died in 2018 in New York. Connie grew up on the Verrill family farm in Cape Elizabeth, right here on Ocean House Road next to CELT. In 1950, she married Nicholas Davis, whose family owned Phantom Farm off of Broad Cove, and whose father was a founder of the Perputic Golf Club. Here's a picture of Phantom Farm as it was then, and it's all houses now, pretty much. And here is this handsome portrait of Nick Davis that Connie's son gave to the Land Trust. And Nick served with distinction in both World War II and the Korean War, and he received several medals, including the Purple Heart. And Connie's son Chris also gave us those medals, along with a newspaper article about him, which we have framed for display at some point in our office. Connie always loved being in nature, and Nick loved to sail his boat, the Phantom, up and down the coast of Maine. Tragically, Nick was killed in action in Korea very shortly after their wedding. He's buried in Evergreen Cemetery in Portland, if you have a mind to look him up. But before he died, he was able to leave his young bride a trust fund. Connie later married R. Donald Wright and raised two sons, Chris and Brad, in New York. She kept close ties to her family in Cape Elizabeth, including several cousins who still live here. Chris told us about coming from New York in the summers and also to celebrate the holidays with the relatives. With her focus on her new family and her life in New York, Connie never touched the principal from Nick's trust, but kept it invested, and it grew significantly over the years. Both she and her second husband, Donald, felt that directing this gift from the Nicholas Davis Trust to CELT was a perfect way to acknowledge Nick Davis and the importance of the beautiful lands and rural character of the hometown that they shared together. So just as this trust was invested wisely over so many years, so will this generous bequest be invested to support CELT's ongoing mission, to conserve and care for Cape's lands in perpetuity, and to provide nature-based education and recreation programs for local students and families, both now and in the future. We're deeply indebted to Connie and to her family for making this incredible bequest. And we welcome anyone who wants to consider supporting CELT beyond your lifetime to talk to me about joining the Oak Society by making a planned gift. And now here's yet another amazing story about one man's legacy that's been preserved in the farm that he loved so much.
My name is Peter Eastman. I have lived here at Turkey Hill Farm all my life, so to speak. My parents bought the farm in the early 20s as a summer place, at which time the buildings were valued at $50. Initially, there was no running water, no heat. Well, there was a stove for the fireplace. It wasn't until about 1950 that we had deep water. No, I grew up pretty much alone out here. The fellows I sort of hung around with were the boys across the street. Considerably older, they were the Peoples. They farmed about 5 plots of land up here. And I hung around with them and rode in their Ford stake truck and so forth. Picked up some of their language to my mother's disgust. I was told that's not a polite thing to say. But mostly I was just hanging around here getting into trouble. The house originally was a cottage down by the shore, fisherman's cottage. Then it was dragged up the hill by 40 yoke of oxen. You know, just one of these New England houses added on to. About 1930-31, my mother had the barn made into a big living room with ideas of entertaining. But then came the Depression. Eastman Brothers and Bancroft closed, and so my mother ran it as a tea room and gift shop until the war came along to pay for it. Most of the customers were people from Prout's Neck, or staying at Prout's Neck to escape the heat of New York and Philadelphia and so forth, and people from the Atlantic House and Black Point and that sort of thing. At one time, my parents were thinking of selling, and I made some comment about, well, don't sell my roots out from under me, or something like that. A story about the place, the Davises, Clinton and Mary Davis lived next door, so to speak. They owned Phantom Farm. And at one point, they came up, they wanted us to give them a conservation easement on Turkey Hill. And they didn't want development here. Well, we were just recovering from the Depression, and things were very tight for us. And I got very unhappy because we weren't in a position to give it to them. And there were rather hard feelings for a while. Now, you look at Phantom Farm, it doesn't exist anymore.
This farm is still here.
Say again?
Turkey Hill Farm is still here. And
Turkey Hill is still here.
And they are all developed.
And not only here, but it's been in conservation easement for some years to the Cape Land Trust, and in the process of being turned over lock, stock, and barrel to the Cape Land Trust. My son is up in Rockport. He's got a place of his own up there and is not so much interested in the farm. And so I figured I didn't want to sell it to some company from New Jersey to come and sit here by themselves and sip martinis. I wanted some outfit in control that would use it as we have been using it for the community good. I like to think of it's being used for those less fortunate. So many people say how much they enjoyed it up here. And I would say, well, I enjoy seeing so many people enjoy the property. I'm not going to be here forever, so I trust the land trust to carry on with worthwhile events.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cindy Krum. I'm the executive director with the Cape Elizabeth Land Trust and have been for 5 years now, and absolutely love working with this community and this amazing organization. And what I must say, first off here, is wow. I mean, just think about this amazing campaign, this unbelievable bequest. And now, all in 1 year, we also became the proud owners of Turkey Hill Farm. And so I would really like to just send a heartfelt thank you to the late Peter Eastman. His vision for this farm was incredible. You can hear in the video that he was doing this for the community and for those who are disadvantaged. So I'd like to make sure that everybody knows that the CELT board has decided that they will create a community-focused vision for Turkey Hill Farm that allows for activities such as education programs on ecology or farming, native species support such as growing milkweed for the monarchs, and holding events, meaningful events for the community. The board believes that the entire property should remain open to the public and be a great resource for the community. Now, CELT, of course, wants your input on programming at Turkey Hill Farm. To date, we have had a community-wide survey. We would invite everybody out to the farm to gather, but since we are in a pandemic, instead, we are holding 2 Zoom meetings on December 3 and December 7. And we will be setting up a Friends of Turkey Hill Farm group. The Zoom meetings have been in our newsletter and are on our website and will be in the courier soon. Please join us and please get in touch if you would like to be part of Friends of Turkey Hill Farm. Now, in the past few weeks, CELT educators have led 8th grade classes out at Turkey Hill Farm as part of the school's ecological study course. There will be more programming to come. I would also like to send out a special thank you to Megan Wakefield, who is with us tonight, who cared for the property, and Peter Eastman for over a decade, and who coordinated a lovely, moving bench dedication ceremony for Peter at the farm at the end of September. I know some of you joined us. Did someone just say something? Oh, sorry. So Turkey Hill Farm is 25 acres, well, 25.69 acres of field and forest. Turkey Hill is an exceptionally special place. We hope that you will explore the trails and fields. You can pull in the driveway and park off to the left after you have driven in a bit, and you can walk around the farm and then go into the forest. So as Suzanne mentioned in her presentation about the campaign, there are 3 other properties that the campaign made possible. The first, of course, was Pollock Brook Preserve. Now, Pollock Brook, we brought in 30 acres, and it connected to CELT's older property, Runaway Farm, for a total of 50 acres. It also connects to the town's Gallcrest trails and is across from the town's town farm property where CELT holds an easement, a great place to explore. Campaign funding has allowed for us to do improvements on this property. We just recently got permitting through the town and the Army Corps of Engineers to put in a small bridge to connect Pollock Brook to the trails on Runaway. Also, we will be adding 100 feet of boardwalk. Look for our volunteer crews out there on the property soon, and we will announce this in our newsletter if you would like to join us. So Robinson Woods 3, 51.9 acres preserved as part of the campaign in April 2019. You can see the trails on the map show how this connects to our prior Robinson Woods Preserve to create a conserved area over 200 acres for all to enjoy. This winter, we will be working on plans and permitting for upgrades and a bridge over a small stream on this new property. Again, it is the inclusion of stewardship in the campaign that has allowed us to improve our properties. Thank you. And Maxwell Farm. I've spent hours out there lately doing the baseline documentation for the property with Maine Farmland Trust. Maxwell Farm Dyer Field is the name of the property. And we are close to having the funding to hold an easement on this property in perpetuity. We have a few weeks left to raise the funds. 76 acres. An amazing property in town. In this case, preserving the farmland between Sawyer Road and Spurwink Avenue will allow for farming to continue in this community. There will be local food sources. So although there is not public access, there are wonderful views. And as Suzanne mentioned before, we protect for ecological habitat, recreation, and farmland. And we are so proud to be able to protect another farm in town. So it wouldn't be a talk at an annual meeting during this year unless I mentioned the pandemic. Of course, this has been hard for all of us, but I will say that one thing that CELT really realized is how critical our outdoor spaces were for the health of our community. All of our properties with public access have been heavily used during the pandemic. One of our advisors told me recently that she walks the Robinson Woods trails regularly and has had countless instances where people she did not know turned from a social distance, of course, and said, "Aren't we so lucky to have a place to go right now?" So many people reached out to us from the community thanking us for keeping our trails open. With the increased use, of course, there have also been some stewardship opportunities. And our extremely committed stewardship volunteers, our summer intern, and staff have attended to these. And our educational efforts have been very strong during the pandemic. At the end of this program tonight, we will show you one of the short videos that has been viewed by so many in town, along with all the video series. And I will say that after focusing on virtual programming for the last half year, we are very happy to also be doing some outdoor programming following the CDC guidelines. So please enjoy the aerial photography of the 4 properties that I just described coming next. And then Bill, our board president, will continue to talk about some other exciting successes at CELT this year.
I should say, just to emphasize, David Pratt, who's a CELT member and supporter, did that video, and he also did another video, numerous versions of it for Paint for Preservation. I mean, he's done a real service to give a really dramatic view of what the Land Trust has done and can do in terms of preserving the character of the Cape. I don't think it really, I don't think you can say too many times how fortunate CELT has been this year. A year that's been of hardship for many people and tragic outcomes. And we've been, despite that, incredibly fortunate. And I think Suzanne and Cindy and Patty have indicated a variety of ways in which this has been a spectacular year for the Land Trust in the face of the pandemic. But there are other areas in which CELT has also been very, very successful. With regard to membership, we have a strategic plan that had a goal of a 38% increase in membership by 2022, and we've already achieved that 2 years early. We added 114 members this year, 70 members last year. Our total membership now is 634 members. We have a conservation leadership circle now of 76 people, families. They give at least $1,000 to CELT every year. Needless to say, we've been incredibly gratified by the increase in membership, which to some degree, as Cindy indicates, represented the fact that CELT was very valuable to the community, particularly during the pandemic when it was really the only place to go if you wanted to go outside and feel you were in very beautiful surroundings. We also, thanks to the incredibly hard work of David Bryman and Kathleen Janik, we received reaccreditation from the Land Trust Alliance this year. Ann Carney and Kathleen did an incredible job several years ago in ensuring that we would be accredited. And again, David and Kathleen did just a spectacular job. And it was a huge job of getting us through this reaccreditation process. Let me just read from the Land Trust Alliance webpage in terms of the significance of accreditation. Land Trust accreditation is a mark of distinction, showing that the Land Trust meets high standards for land conservation. It sends a message to landowners and supporters: invest in us. We are a strong, effective organization you can trust to conserve your land forever. Accreditation basically shows that we have met the very demanding standards of the Land Trust Alliance that impact on really all aspects of our activities. Paint for Preservation this year was a real challenge, we started out early on thinking it was going to actually be a live event and we were going to get people together in beautiful surroundings. And by April and May, it became clear that was not going to happen. And it took us a while to work through it. At one point we thought, well, maybe we just won't do it this year. But we felt that it was an important community event. And so we ventured into the new world of virtual fundraising, holding our breath, wondering how this was going to work. And it worked spectacularly well. We netted $70,000. Last year, which was the best event that we had, we raised around $90,000. So the bottom line is we raised only $20,000 less than we raised in our best year through a new medium, and the community was wonderful in the support that it gave to us. We had 32 artists and 340 people registered as attendees to the celebration that we had during the last night of the auction. I think we have a picture of at least one of the artists, Marguerite Lawler, Berwink Marsh, taken by Bob Harrison. We also took drone videos of the artists working. And I have to say, having been on the committee, it was a lot of fun, though it was scary. And fortunately, it turned out well. Let me finally turn to the retirement of our last president, Elizabeth Goodspeed. And I think she was president for 3 years. They were challenging years of the capital campaign, acquisition of all of these properties that Cindy has talked about. It was an incredible period of growth and change for the organization. And Elizabeth spent an incredible amount of time helping with all of that and making sure it was all a success. And I think everyone owes her a tremendous debt of gratitude for hanging in there and making sure that CELT and its future was assured. As a really small token, and we can't really do enough for Elizabeth given all the hard work, but as a small token of our appreciation, we are going to present in a socially distanced way a print of a painting of Cape Elizabeth by Molly Brown of Molly Maps. It also appears on the tote bag that Suzanne showed earlier. The actual painting is going to be auctioned off next summer. At this point, I think if we can unmute Elizabeth, hopefully she can say a few words. Can we do that?
Thank you guys so much. That's really sweet of you. And your words are very kind, Bill. I think we couldn't be in better hands with you at the helm now. When I joined CELT 7 years ago, I joined for the mission, and I joined because our house abutted Robinson Woods. And in thinking back on my time with CELT, really what's kept me involved is the people that I've gotten to meet. Our board and volunteers and staff are the most dedicated, intelligent, and genuinely kind people you could ever ask for. And I'm really grateful to have gotten to know them both within CELT and also outside of CELT. And I think if I had known I would become a mother 10 months into my term, I never would have said yes to Ann Carney when she asked me, because I completely underestimated how life-changing that is. And so I have to thank the board for putting up with the fact that the past 2 years have been me in a sleep-deprived state. I think like Bill and Cindy have both mentioned, this past year has been kind of like a sine wave of just ups and downs. And it's really a testament to the organization that we stand poised so well right now. And again, Bill, we just can't be in better hands with you. So thank you for taking over as president. And thank you so much for that print. That is beautiful.
We'll get it to you, as they say in a socially way soon. Again, I have huge shoes to fill. So, but you've left us in a wonderful situation. Liz Murley is going to talk about who's chair of the governance committee, is now going to take us through what I think will be a brief review of various organizational changes and other things related to the governance of the organization. Liz?
Thanks, Bill. Can you hear me all right? Great. I just want to correct one thing. Elizabeth is retiring from being the chair of our board, but she is not retiring from the board. And we're thrilled to continue to have her with us. So those of you, we are now at the governance portion of the meeting, which is where you all come in. This is, after all, a membership meeting where the item of business is to for you all to vote on new directors for the year. Those of you who are veterans of this meeting will remember that normally at this point we convene a meeting of the board, that is, so that the officers can be elected, but we've changed our bylaws this year so that we no longer have to do that. I know you're all very sad. But I'm pleased to tell you that this year's officers are, as you know, Bill Luneburg as president, David Bryman continuing on as vice president, Wyman Briggs continuing on as treasurer, I'm continuing on as secretary, and then the additional board member elected by the board to serve on the executive committee with the executive officers this year is Nick Owens. And all of those, if you want to look at biographies, they are all available on the website. So I now want to turn to election of directors. There are two things to say here. The first is that some of you may remember that Tom McInerney was elected as a director at last year's annual meeting. And he has found that he is unable to continue on to complete his term. So the board has elected Dennis Leiner to serve out that term on the board, and he will serve until the annual meeting in 2022. Dennis has been a resident of Cape for 20 years. Professionally, he's in the medical devices industry, has served previously on the Maine International Trade Association Board, and he has also been serving as a member of the governance committee for the past 2 years and has been a great help. So we're happy to have him on board. And the new bylaws are such that you do not need to vote on filling that vacancy. What we do need a vote on now is there are 5 members of the board who are standing for re-election this year, and they are David Bryman, Lisa Gent, Suzanne McGinn, who you heard from earlier, Chris Tallman, and myself. And then we have 2 new members who are standing for election for the first time. And Kate, can we put up the slide with the faces, or maybe it's up and I just can't see it? Nope, not that one. There we go. Can you take the poll down? Well, hopefully you can all see the faces of our new folks. So the 2 new board members standing for the first time are Celeste Bannock. Celeste grew up right here in Cape, then went away for a period of time, moved back 4 years ago with her husband and 2 young boys. And she has been serving on the membership and development committee. And then Nate Fick, who also has moved to Cape relatively recently with his wife and 2 daughters. Sorry, I should have said professionally. Celeste is in the development world, has done many years of work with the Appalachian Mountain folks. And Nate was an infantry officer in the Marine Corps, served both in Afghanistan and Iraq. Has also been in the venture capital world and is an entrepreneur in the information services security world. And he has been working on our lands committee for several years. Some of you know that we have a tradition that we hope that folks who are interested in the board will serve on a committee prior to being considered for board work. So through the magic of technology, I'm hoping that you can all see a poll now in front of you. Can you nod your heads if you can see that poll? No, no one can see the poll. Some people can see the poll. Okay. So the motion is, do you approve of the motion to appoint each of the following folks to a 3-year term on CELT's board of directors expiring at the annual meeting in 2023? And once again, those folks are Celeste Bannock, David Bryman, Nate Fick, Lisa Gent, Liz Murley, Suzanne McGinn, and Chris Tallman. So if you are a member, if I could ask you to vote now, and it's 1 vote per household. I know we've got some folks who are on together. Good, we are voting nicely. Just gonna watch that number run up. Yeah, and actually we're there. We need a quorum of 25 and we've gotten to 31. Anyone left to vote? Okay. And what I can Kate, do I share the results or do you? At any rate, we are unanimously approved. So thank you for that. And then lastly, I just want to say thank you to all of the committee chairs who have served on the current year and those who are coming in. So on the Education Committee, thank you to Lisa Gent, who is continuing on Finance, to Wyman Briggs, who is continuing on. I'm going to continue to serve as chair of the Governance Committee. Bill Luneburg has served as chair of the Lands Committee this year, but he is going to, as he has moved over to the board chair position, David Bryman is going to take that role. And Nick Owens served as chair of Membership and Development this year, but he is turning that one over to Sherm Altenberg. And Stewardship, the dynamic duo of Ryan DeBrun and Chris Tallman are going to continue on for another year. So thank you to all of those folks. And also just to say, we always need more volunteers, always, always, always. So if there's anything, if you're interested in becoming more involved, you can talk to me, you can talk to any board member, you can talk to Patty Renault or Cindy. Thank you again for all of your support. I think now I'm heading over to Cindy and Philip for Q&A. Is that right?
Yes, thank you, Liz. And Kate, I don't know if this is true for everybody, but I'm still seeing the poll in front of Liz. So anyway, if you could take the poll down, Kate, that would be great. So yes, we are now going to do question and answer. And as Bill said early on, you can put them in the chat, you can email us, or if you happen to be on Facebook, you can do it there. And I am going to turn this over to Philip Matthew, who is our Education and Stewardship Coordinator, as Suzanne pointed out earlier. We are so thrilled that he's full-time with the Land Trust now. And take it away, Philip. And then I will come back at the very end of this time to play that video that I mentioned before that our education team has put together. So that is how we will end our program. But first, we will have our questions and answers. So thank you.
Sure. So I would say we've only had a couple questions. So if anyone has any other questions, please put them in the chat now. One question that I got was more of a recommendation just about, getting volunteers, especially with all of these new properties coming in. As both the Education and Stewardship Coordinator, I end up working with most of our volunteers here at CELT, and the easiest thing you can do is just send us an email or fill out the form on our website, which I'll share in the chat right now. That's the best way to get in touch. If you have something specific you want to volunteer with, that's all well and good. If you just want to be on the list and know what's happening and when you could show up, if you can make it, that's also great. We have lots of those folks as well. We're pretty good at finding ways to make people useful. So check out that link or shoot us an email as well. Other than that, we had a historical query on the Facebook about the history of Trundy Point that I'm going to have to follow up with a little more research. And then we had one specific question about a specific property that I'll be following up with more directly as well. So I guess last call for any questions if there are any more for us today.
Okay, well, thank you all. And please know that the staff, others are always available for questions if they come up later. We love chatting with the community members. That's kind of the highlight of our job, really. And I will say, actually, I've talked on the phone with so many community members since the pandemic started. It's been really remarkable. I often look forward to Mondays, actually, in a way, because I've gotten so many emails and people who want to talk about this or that with the properties. So it really has been exciting. But I would like to take the opportunity here before the video comes on to really thank all of you. It is all of you that make this organization what it is. So thank you. And thank you to those of you who volunteer and to the people who really put in a lot of time to make this organization what it is. Again, it's just amazing. And honestly, I've said this before, I'll say it again, I've never seen anything like it in other organizations. We have an unbelievable volunteer network here. Thank you to the donors to the campaign. It's been a remarkable campaign. And thank you to our board of directors and to the community organizations that we work with. So thank you all. And here we go to our one of our education videos. The others are up on our website if you haven't had a chance to see them. And again, we really, really appreciate you joining us here tonight for our first ever virtual annual meeting. Hope to see you soon.
My name is Jared, and I'm the head gardener at the Inn by the Sea. And we've had the privilege of introducing being part of the Monarch Way Station into our gardening program. It makes it so interesting for guests, interesting for us as employees, and just interesting for everyone, allowing milkweed to grow in between. This was a typical foundation planting with Fothergilla, azaleas, and giant hostas, and nature has blown in these seeds of the milkweed, and instead of pulling them when we weed and clean the gardens in the spring, we allow wildflowers to grow, like the Queen Anne lace and the milkweed. And the milkweed gives us an extra bonus or an extra boost with the beauty of monarch butterflies. They come every year, they lay their eggs, and now we're at the stage where these gorgeous caterpillars will soon become chrysalises. And the coolest part of all is that I believe the monarchs that are born here fly all the way to Mexico. So we're in a tiny town in Maine, southern Maine, but we're part of the whole flight path of the monarch butterfly, and it connects you to a wider world of wildlife, and just is really fascinating. This is a restoration project sponsored by Inn by the Sea here in Cape Elizabeth, Maine. Approximately 12 years ago, if you'll look to my right, there's a 200-plus-year-old red oak. From that mighty oak all the way down to the strawberry fields over there, this entire patch of land was a solid block of acres and acres and acres of our #1 exotic invasive Japanese knotweed. And massive trucks came in, they removed all the Japanese knotweed. We planted 500 native trees, plants, and shrubs. Here's a Cornus cerevisiae, or red-twig dogwood, fruiting. And as a huge bonus, nature planted milkweed in this field, and it planted millions of solidago or goldenrod. The goldenrod is beloved by bees. There's hundreds of them right behind me. There's bumblebees and honeybees, and produces lots of pollen. There's early blooming goldenrod, and then there's a late blooming variety too. And the late blooming variety is what the monarch butterfly uses on its migration south from the northern climates to Mexico, and in the fall they literally stop here, and this whole entire field is full of monarch butterflies. We're just going to talk a little bit about what you could do in your own corner of the world or your own backyard to create a monarch butterfly or a wildlife habitat. This, to my left, used to all be a lawn, a cultivated green lawn that was mowed and fertilized, but it is not irrigated or watered on a regular consistency or regular timing. And so here we are, 2020, August in Maine, and we are experiencing a mild drought. It's very dry. The grass has gone completely dormant, but behind the grass is a beautiful wildflower meadow. And how this wildflower meadow grew here was we just stopped mowing, and literally it was that easy. The vetch moved in, the solidago moved in, and there's shrubberies growing in here as well. We stopped mowing, and 2 years later, this gorgeous collection of wildflowers has grown, and it supports a really wide variety of wildlife. Whereas if you look at your typical American lawn, nothing can really live there. I don't even think worms live in it anymore. But here, it's an explosion of life. And it's not to say that you have to let your entire yard revert back to a meadow, but if everyone in the whole, let's say this whole town of Cape Elizabeth, took 1/4 of their backyard, let it revert back to a meadow, the benefits for wildlife would be just unbelievable.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight for this celebration. It's been an amazing year for conservation in Cape, and we appreciate all of your support and hope to see you socially distanced out on the trails, hopefully maybe some snowshoeing this winter when things happen. So please stay in touch and have a great night tonight.